Mike, the next slide. PW, would you join us up once more to help us get started with our program? Wow. Well, let me say after the Gooch of the Tea Party announcement, we know that at least for the foreseeable future, we will never hear about FEMA skipping over people because they have Trump signs in their yards and they will get the service that they need. I mean, this is ridiculous to think that people would turn the government and use it as weapons on citizens who have suffered one of the most tremendous cataclysms you can imagine, the loss of their homes and everything else, and you've got people actually saying, well, we're not going to serve them because they've got a Trump sign. Well, thank God that now that this administration has taken over, we're not going to have that because we're better than that. We would not do that to other people who don't agree with us. We will serve our fellow citizens, and maybe more and more of them will come to our side and realize they need a government that is fair and impartial when it comes to the development and the delivery of services, not one that is being used as a weapon against people they see as their political enemies. So thank God for that. We are elated about that. The fact that the Justice Department will no longer be a weapon against us. Thank God. I believe that before long, every person that's been locked up under this J6 nonsense and under these attacks on people for protesting in front of abortions are going to be out of prison and free, which is what they ought to be.
Yes.
So, just had to get that in because it's disgusting to think that people would use the federal government as a weapon when it's supposed to be our servant, not our master. Okay, well, look. I don't have long, but I just want to, first of all, thank Nelson and thank Bob Keeler and thank all of you for giving me this privilege. I wish I could stay all day with you because I was telling Trevor, I met Trevor at one of these meetings, and I was there all day to hear your speech, Trevor, and I thought, who is this guy? I've got to get to know this guy. And Trevor and I have become friends ever since. I wish I could stay. We got an event at our church. I've got to get this young man who was with me back for that. And I've got sermon preparation tomorrow too, so I apologize for that because I would love to stay with you all. In fact, I was at the first Tea Party meeting that we had in Virginia in Hampton Roads, the very first one. I was there, and I'll tell you what, I've been with you all ever since. And I just want you all to know, I am proud of the fact that I've been called a black white supremacist. It's just, I mean, and thank you all for your speak to it in this, because look, we've been called everything. You know, racist, angry, mean, all kinds of accusations have been spun up against us. And Trump is right. They're not just after him, they're really after us. But you know what? They're going to find out that we who love our country and love God and really care about our citizens, there is no quit in us. We are going to fight until the last dog dies. I mean, there is no stopping. We're going to keep going. And now that we won, we're even more invigorated to carry on. Because look, folks, we were talking about it earlier. What would it have been like if this election had gone the other way? I mean, we would have been in trouble. And you know, when Trump was shot and that bullet pierced his ear, the Lord really spoke to my heart and said this. And I said to you, I think I said to you, Trevor, and Trevor said the same thing. My whole attitude about this election changed. I had a sense that God was doing something, that this was not luck, that he did not turn the right way at the right time by accident, that this was really the hand of providence, as our founding fathers often referred to it. And I really felt God saying to me, just as he turned to the right and dodged the bullet, I'm going to turn America to the right, and we're going to dodge the bullet. And that's exactly what happened in this last election. So thank God for it. I know many of you ask me, because you don't see me, many of you ask me, well, what have you been up to? Well, a lot. And my ministry takes me really around the country, speaking at various places and encouraging people and doing what I can to support the efforts in other places as well as Virginia. But you all should know this, because this flew completely under the radar. But our PAC, Stand America PAC, ran 900 ads in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia to black radio stations and outlets to convince black voters to not vote for Kamala Harris, but to vote for Donald Trump. So yeah, we were working. And by the way, you should know this. We actually ran one ad that said to Christians, vote your Christian values. Don't vote race, don't vote party, vote your Christian values. We actually had 2 gospel radio stations say to us, we're not running that ad. And we said, well, what's wrong with it? And they gave us this gobbledygook about the legal department, this, that, and the other. But that told me the ads were effective. And they were afraid of them. And they absolutely refused to run them. So I'm hoping that Donald Trump is going to appoint some people to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, that will end the censorship regime that we have right now. They don't have a right to tell us we can't run ads, particularly during an election period, say we're not going to run an ad, not because we're defaming, or slandering, or threatening, or saying anything wrong. They just didn't want to run the ad because they didn't want the voters to hear it. And they didn't want people to be able to think about it. So we were there pitching in every way we could, just as you all were in our various venues. So look, what about now? What do we do now? So there's a whole lot to talk about. Like I said, I'm going to take a limited amount of time. But I would say the 2 appointments that I am most concerned about, most interested in, are the appointment to the Attorney General's office, because I'm convinced of this, that the Attorney General has got to focus not merely on crime. The Attorney General has got to become the advocate for preserving and protecting the constitutional liberties of the American people. They've got to defend our First Amendment liberties, our freedom of religion, and our Second Amendment liberties as well. Because I've got news for you folks. In many states, there is no Second Amendment liberty. I just was in Illinois, I was in Chicago, for the closing of a trial, 2 thugs who killed a 7-year-old girl. And we have a project called America's Forgotten Children, because since the Defund the Police movement, many, many children have been slayed around this country by these thugs that these George Soros prosecutors are allowing to roam through the streets, and children are often the victims of these crimes. We've got 650 children murdered since the Defund the Police movement began. And I went out there for the trial, the closing arguments in one of those trials. Natalia Wallace, 7 years old, shot dead in a July 4th celebration because 4 thugs pulled up and decided to simply shoot into the crowd. But in Illinois, the law-abiding citizen can't get a firearm. And so when we travel to Illinois, I usually travel with security, we can't take firearms with us. I went to the courtroom, and I practiced law for 15 years. This was like walking into a third world communist country, because there was a wall of bulletproof glass between the people who were there to watch the proceedings and the lawyers and the judges on the inside. And people literally were going up to the glass, putting their ear up to the glass, trying to hear what was going on in what was supposed to be a public trial. Now that's what liberals have in mind for America. To build a great big wall between the elites and the rest of us, where they run the show, and you just get to sit back and watch, and there's this pretense that you have some kind of influence or some kind of effect when you really don't. And so we've got to have a Justice Department that is going to put an end to this nonsense, this craziness of allowing the criminals and the thugs and the murderers and the illegal alien child molesters and rapists and murderers to roam our streets, while the law-abiding citizen is in many jurisdictions not even able to own a firearm or to carry a firearm in order to protect ourselves. And thank God under Donald Trump, the Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms is going to be protected and defended, and we better stand up and make sure that it does, because these liberals have really done a job on the cities of our country. So I just want you all to just continue to do what you are doing. God bless you for all that you've done and for all that you're doing. And know that I'm in the fight with you. And anytime I can, I'm going to be responsive. I'm glad to be here today. And I'll tell you, one last thing I'll say. I have friends who left the Commonwealth of Virginia. They believe we've lost the Commonwealth. But yeah, they believe we've lost the Commonwealth, and I tell them all the time, I'm going to meet George Washington in heaven. And when I meet George Washington in heaven, I'm not going to tell him, I gave up on the Commonwealth of Virginia, Mr. President, because things just weren't going right. I'm going to fight to make sure that Virginia honors the legacy of our founding fathers who were responsible for the foundation of this nation, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry and George Mason and James Madison and James Monroe and so many other patriots who really fashioned the Constitution that we have and that we live under today. I am not giving up on them. I am not giving up on the Commonwealth of Virginia, just like I'm not giving up on the United States of America. We're going to march on to victory. Let's keep going until we finally lay to rest all this Marxism and socialism and all of this nonsense, this sexual deviancy and this baby killing stuff that's going on in our country, and so that our nation emerges as a nation that is blessed because our God is the Lord. God bless each and every one of you. Love you. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you.